So let's go to another one that's maybe more complicated. This one's white to play. And I'm not going to spoil it because we're going to do a variety of candidate move exercises here. But if it is white to play, which it is, what moves would you guys consider? Like, what's even worth trying? So you don't have to say moves right away. It's probably good to take it in, evaluate, see what's going on. And then we could talk about specific moves once we have some ideas. So everyone's welcome to share, especially Atarv, since he just joined in. And Inner Mirror, I'd like to hear more from you guys. Okay, so Jumping Chess Horse says Knight f7 check. Oh, Knight f6 check. Queen takes b3 are the first two to calculate. Okay. But maybe you should consider more, push yourself. Just try to see some more. At least three. I think at least three moves in almost any position is good. I know three is sometimes used as like a magic number by educators. Like you need 3 reasons not to wear school uniforms, 3 reasons to have free lunch, all this nonsense when they're making you write essays in American school. It's always 3 for some reason. You definitely can't have more supporting arguments than that. But I think in chess it makes sense. You should see as many ideas as possible. Atarv's considering rook takes d7. Inner Mirror says the pawn on a3 needs to be covered. That might be true, but I think it's good to consider the possibility that we don't care about the pawn on a3. So maybe some of your candidate moves would protect it, but they shouldn't be the only candidate moves. All right, knight c5, that's another maybe candidate move. It's attacking 3 things, so it might factor in somewhere. Seems good. It's good to stay flexible during this candidate move stage, because if you think a little too rigidly, like only certain types of moves could be good, then you're going to be in some difficult situations when the best move is a counterintuitive move. All right, so Yi Future Master says queen b3, rook d7, and knight c5 are the 3 moves. Okay, let me see if maybe I could offer some different candidate moves for myself. So I definitely agree on queen b3, because if the queen's almost hanging, it might factor in somewhere. Rook takes d7 could come in somewhere. If we want to protect a3, we could do it with rook a1, because the knight on a4 is guarded by the queen, through the queen, so we don't have to worry about that. Maybe I would also consider a move like maybe even king h1, just to dodge bishop to e3 if I'm really pushing for ideas. Knight f6, maybe it's on the menu. Knight c5, also conceivable. All right, so let's see what everyone is looking at, because I think some people are already jumping to the calculation without really considering too much. So Atarv, you're saying queen b3 followed by rook d7 since the bishop is pinned. So that's a good first step. So if you can work on that, that would be good. All right, so Inner Mirror is looking for a mate. So Inner Mirror, you mean that maybe black is playing for a checkmating attack, or what? So I don't know if our a3 pawn will factor in much for any checkmate we're trying. Another candidate move could be like rook b1 if we want to just like get control of the b file and maybe penetrate to the 7th rank even more. So I think Atarv, your idea with queen b3 is that you want to win the knight on d7. All right, Jumping Chess Horse has a good question. When do you normally switch from candidate moves to deeper calculation? So yeah, bishop c4 is also an idea maybe. I think the queen's hanging, but you never know. It could work out. I see a way that it could work. But when you're switching from candidate moves to deeper calculation, I think you really need to spend some time. You need to. This is probably the bulk of your calculation process, just spotting the ideas and examining the ideas in abstract. For example, Atharv is mentioning that white is a piece down. This is a really important observation. So before you run away calculating whether or not you win a piece, you should first just ask yourself, does it make sense to try to win a piece? It probably isn't sensible to try to win a minor piece if you're down a minor piece, unless that's the best you can do. Settling for just a minor piece means only equality. If you have something better than that, you're going to miss it by assuming that you only want to win exactly a knight or a bishop when you're in a position already down. So Intermir thought that it was the king on b3. I don't know if my pieces are ambiguous, but I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'll switch them. I always switch my chess pieces at the moment that someone mentions my chess pieces. So you've triggered me. I am going to switch my pieces now. Not right this second, though. So Yeet Future Master is still suggesting that AC5. Let's actually talk about the more forcing lines. Obama Eat My Change, welcome and happy Passover. So in this position, which is our third diagram, we're looking at candidate moves. So I just explained the calculation process. We look for ideas first, and then we find moves that fit those ideas. And after we look at them for some time, trying to understand which ones are more promising, we start analyzing the promising moves. And then after we've analyzed enough of them to find a move satisfactory, we play that move. So that's the method. And right now we're still internalizing some ideas. Some ideas that people have thrown out are queen takes b3, rook takes d7, knight c5. I don't know which one they meant, so I'll show both. Let's see. Some ideas of protecting a3, but I think that they were imagining this is the king. King would be in check, so actually no. This would be really strange if both kings were together. But anyway, some bishop c4 ideas were mentioned. I threw in rook b1 just for good measure, and knight f6 because it's forcing. So we have lots of ideas. And by the way, my bot just dropped a link for Discord. If anyone would like to join our community, feel free. Link is right there, permanent link. So these are all the ideas that we mentioned. So I'm just going to click out of them. And we're still kind of trying to figure out which ones are more promising. I think some people have already jumped to the calculation, but my point is you should do this extremely slowly. You'll get really fast at this after you've done it a lot, but the goal shouldn't be to be fast. Being fast should just be a consequence of good studying. So, oh, by the way, doing time puzzles doesn't help your speed either. I don't care what anyone says. I tried that and it just doesn't work. And I've even asked some strong coaches and they've confirmed it's not really a reliable method. They say that you should use time to build your intuition and your practical decision making. In a tournament, you have time, but when you're studying, generally, you should just solve the puzzle no matter how long it takes. But anyway, so moving forward with this one, the promising ideas probably has something to do with rook d7 or queen b3. And the reason I'd say these ideas are more promising is there's a connection between them. The knight on d7 is hanging if the bishop moves, and the bishop is tied to the defense of the queen. So depending on what's going to happen after that, we might be able to win a piece. So I guess whichever one you want to calculate first is a matter of taste. I think queen takes b3 is easier to calculate. I like to calculate the easier ones first. So after queen b3, are we winning material? Atharv mentioned that long ago, so I guess I'll just ask him directly. Did you find a way to win a piece? Or does anyone else see a win of a piece after queen b3? You, Future Master, did not find anything. Can you guys certifiably say that there is no way to win a piece after queen b3? It's good to make firm decisions in your calculation, so you don't calculate them again and again. All right, so Obama Eat My Change also did not find any win of a piece. Probably if a couple other people feel the same way, it means either there's nothing there or it's extremely devious. All right, so I will just confirm that there is no win of a piece. All right. Obama ate my change. Feel free to calculate because I didn't check this with the computer. I just showed up with this. Atharv, your knight on a4 is hanging. So I don't think that's true. You take, and unless I'm missing something, this knight on a4 is just en prise. And your rook's under attack. So if you play a move like knight f6, I'll just take it. It might look like this. Or if I want to be really spicy, I can maybe play bishop f8. These seem very reasonable and very up a piece for... Well, actually, it's an exchange. So it's 5 pawns for black. So it's basically just like equal material, but I really favor black. The reason I favor black here is that probably I should choose rook. And the reason I should choose rook is that I want to keep this pawn, try to eliminate this pawn, and the bishop pair will secure enough counterplay together with these pawns. Usually having an outside pass pawn or the potential for one with the bishop pair is really deadly, even when your opponent is up in exchange. So I think it's at least too complicated, and we should consider other options. Motosems is saying, what if bishop c4 after bishop takes a4? Just to go into that line a little bit more. So that's a check, right? I would go here. And maybe there's a couple more forcing moves, but in a real game, it'll be really hard to calculate so much. Like here, you could play knight f6 still. But I also have this option of bishop g7. I have really a lot of options here. I don't have to take it. I could just kick it back and then move my knight, or I could take it. At any rate, this variation is already like a 4-move variation, and usually long variation means wrong variation. Only if it's completely forcing. Jumping Chess Horse, I really appreciate your compliment. I don't stream consistently anymore because, somewhat ironically, during the time when I was streaming very consistently, I didn't get a lot of viewership, and so I'm just doing it like for fun whenever I have a plan. But I do announce my streams ahead of time in my Discord, so feel free to join in. And I have some extra content on YouTube as well. But if more people want me to do this regularly, I could actually start again. I used to stream like Tuesday, Thursday in the middle of the day, and then like Friday, Saturday, Monday at night, something like that. All right, so Modasem says long variations, wrong variations. Is that only for puzzles? Well, puzzles are generally from games, and the goal in solving puzzles besides enjoyment is to improve our results in games. So we should kind of treat them similarly, except in our time management, because we want to just get things right when we're studying. Well, not necessarily get things right, but follow our method as best as we can and hopefully get the right idea and then learn if we get it wrong. But my point is that in every other respect, I think that what we do in the puzzle is the same as what we do in the game. So long variations, wrong variations, this is almost always true in games and in puzzles. So even if long variations are not, as a rule, incorrect, there are many examples of long, brilliant combinations. And I showed a few really nice combinations in a recent video on calculation. You guys can see it on my YouTube channel if you just browse a little bit. It's under the instructional playlist. And so there are definitely some examples of good long variations. But usually if you calculate something really long, you're going to make mistakes in the beginning if it's not completely forced. Long variations might work if every move is check and they have only one reply, and you visualize it very well. But the tendency is to go wrong by like move 3 when you're calculating long variations. I know I do this a lot. I'm constantly seeking really difficult puzzles with good explanations so I can understand my mistakes. And I often deviate on move 4 from the course if I don't go back and purposely think about candidate moves at each step of the way on like moves 1 and 2. I rarely miss the first move, but when I do, it's because I didn't do the candidate moves well enough. And I have this tendency to calculate long variations because my visualization's not too shabby. So that's definitely a weakness that I have, and part of why I decided to do this video. I made some really bad candidate move decisions, and I was like, you know what, I really need to spend some time on this. So here we are. So let's see. I think we can rule out queen b3. So I think I'll open it up to you guys. What's the next move that we should consider? If it's not queen b3, what other candidate move is the most promising after that one? And usually most promising means like most forcing, most logical. All right, so rook d7 is Obama ate my changes response. And Modasem says rook b1. So let's actually talk about rook b1 because I think it's an easy variation. And I like easy variations. They're very fast. So after rook b1, right, we could make candidate moves for our opponent. They could play bishop e3 check. That's really important to consider. It's forcing. They could play queen takes c2. That's a trade, and then after that they would get to move again. So they might be able to take some initiative, maybe fix the problem of their knight hanging. They could also play queen takes a3 or queen d5. You know, there's lots of options here. So I think if there are lots of options for the opponent, it's really hard to calculate this. So I would calculate something that's more forcing. So I have the same issue with knight c5. I'm not sure which one you meant, Future Master, but after knight c5, they could take your queen, they could check your king. They have lots of options. I think after rook takes d7, they don't have many options. So let's go ahead with that one. Fox Anonymous, welcome. I'm glad you could make it. Thanks for the follow. Let's see. So Obama ate my change said rook d7 and then queen c2 is pretty forced. Yeah, I agree. So they have only one reasonable move after rook d7. It's queen takes c2. So I'll just draw arrows so that everyone's on the same page. Normally you shouldn't draw arrows when you're calculating. It's just for streaming purposes. So after rook d7, queen c2, what will we play next? At this point, I think the only thing you need to do is make good candidate moves. I don't think you need to have insane deep calculation here. You just need to carefully look at all the moves. Obama ate my change made an interesting statement. He said no good checks for white. Are you sure? Are you completely 100% sure that there are no good checks for white? It sounds like you judged it. You didn't calculate it. You have to judge only after calculating. That's the sequence. Unfortunate to hear that Fox Anonymous is sick and with insomnia. Insomnia keeps me here, that's for sure. Jumping Chess Horse says knight f6 was the first candidate move. So let's actually calculate it. If it's the first candidate move and we've scanned for other options and we don't find them satisfactory, we have to consider knight f6. And I think knight f6 is really logical because after rook d7, queen c2. If we play bishop c2, then our rook is hanging, right? So this is the most natural next thing to look at, knight f6. They have a very limited set of moves to play. So what do you guys think black will do after knight f6? Yeah, rook f6 is obvious. It seems completely needed. Rook f6 loses a knight, says Fox Anonymous. So it loses a knight for white or for black? Because this is an interesting point here. Yeah, we're mate on h7. So just to elucidate, after rook d7 first, queen c2, knight f6 check. They can only take with the rook because if king h8, then rook takes h7. The knight is guarding and the rook is attacking and the king is in checkmate. So that's an interesting sign. There's a checkmate if they don't take, so they have to play rook f6. Now here we should make candidate moves again. Candidate moves at each step of the way for both sides. And slowly, not too fast. Otherwise you'll rule out a nice move like knight f6. So what should we play after this? They actually resigned in the game after knight f6. What's the candidate move for white that they must have missed when they played queen b3? Rook d8 in between, and then take back the queen. Yeah, absolutely. And then you go up material. So I'll just show it now because this is correct. So this is a great success of candidate moves. First, to consider rook d7 when your queen's hanging. Second, to consider knight f6 when it's a free piece. These are good moves, and if you don't consider them, you can't play them. You can only play moves that cross your mind. So, and just to show the justification, they resigned because of rook f6, rook d8 check, and then whatever move they play, it's depressing. If they play rook f8, it just makes it worse, I guess, because we trade rooks and then take the queen. And if they play a move like king g7, and we evaluate this position, white is up a clear rook, not just in exchange for 2 pawns, they're just up a rook. And what an active rook it is. So this is a great example of candidate moves, again. And just to reiterate, the stream of consciousness here, all right, that's not actually what stream of consciousness means, but the flow of our thoughts should be that we make ideas. This is a slow process. We pick moves that fit the ideas. We don't judge them. We analyze the moves. And then after we have a firm evaluation of each move, we decide which one is the best for us. All right, so you're asking if I'm a titled player. I'm a candidate master. I've been like really close to U.S. national master like multiple times. But these days I'm not playing tournaments, not just because of coronavirus. Just there are lots of factors that keep me from playing, mostly just being an adult. And but I'm still very motivated to eventually go for norms. I already have a life master norm, and I'm still working on getting stronger all the time. And I don't think anything's too easy. I think everything deserves some attention.